ready to race. Not yet, but soon. Hello my friends, and welcome to Tom's Tinkering and Adventures. Behind me here I've got a KTM 300 XCW. This is a 2017 model, and we are going to be putting in a new top end piston kit basically. There's nothing wrong with this bike. We are just doing this for preventative measures because these motorcycles have a limit for top end. After a certain amount of hours they recommend changing it. You can continue going. The owner of this bike, a buddy of mine, he's very diligent about maintenance, unlike some people, myself, fingers pointed at me right now, and wants to get her done. He's kind of busy, so he dropped her off with me. So we're going to get her started here. We're going to pull the seat off, going to pull the tank off, going to pull the skid plate off, and then I'll get it up on a lift and I'll show you steps after that. These KTM 300s are pretty cool bikes. I used to have one a couple years older than this one, but this is an electric start two-stroke. Just amazing, and very easy to work on. As you can see, the tank off and the seat off. We already have really easy access to the cylinder head and the cylinder here, so it's not going to be a very difficult job. I don't even think I have to remove the radiators. I might have to loosen them a little bit, but our next step is I'm going to remove this exhaust pipe, which is just a bolt here and a bolt down there and a couple of springs up here. So we'll remove that, and then I'm going to take off these head mounts, whatever you call them, head stays here, pop the spark plug cap off, and then drain the coolant system, which I will have to double check, but I believe it is that bolt right there. Okay, if I haven't said it already, RTFM, read the freaking manual. The video will help you out a bit, but you definitely should have a manual with you when you take it apart and put it together. So there's your disclaimer. All right, I was correct on this, being the drain for the coolant. So your easiest way to check this is, I don't know how well you can see it, but there's a copper crush washer behind here. And I'd say every water pump on every motorcycle that I've worked on your water pump, one of the bolts is going to have one of them copper crush washers. So that's what drains the system. And of course then you have to remove your cap, otherwise it'll be vacuum locked. As soon as you open that cap, this will come shooting out about this far. So be ready. These are removed, and I took off this upper coolant pipe, disconnected the spark plug wire. Now we're going to take off these. I'm going to take off these little covers here. Oh, that one's definitely not going to fit. Let's get the right one. We'll take off these covers right there, because that is where our power valve is connected. And if you don't know what a power valve is, kind of hard to explain it, but I can show you what the linkage looks like here. Let me get these off, and we'll come on back, because I don't want to drop them. All right, there's our power valve linkage. So what this does is, at different engine RPMs, there's like a centrifugal wheel in here or something that with enough weight, it pulls this down or pushes this up, depending. And it changes the way that the exhaust port is kind of like opened or closed. So I can't remember which way it goes, so don't quote me on this, but let's say at higher RPMs, it opens the exhaust port on this thing, so you get, let's say, so you get more exhaust through there. But either way, it opens it or closes it. And this is something that's been on most modern two-strokes, so heck, probably since even the 80s. But anyway, on this KTM, there's a little spring clip thing kind of right here. I don't know how well you can see it sticking out there, so you got to kind of push that back, and then that'll pop off. Then this is going to pop off of a little ball that has to come off, number one, because it's attached to this cylinder, and number two, there is a bolt back here. Doing some trimming out here. Just knocked down a big chunk. Nice. I got that little clip off. Now you can see this, how this moves. So it has this arm. Let's see, it's kind of all the way down. So I guess as the engine revs up, that goes that way. And once we pull this apart, maybe I can show you inside of here how that looks. I've got all the cylinder head bolts out, except for this one for dramatic effort here. Dramatic effect. What I said, effort. And now our cylinder head should come off. And maybe. Ouch. Oh. There's the top of our piston. So two-stroke, awesome. No cam, no valves. Simple. Not even a head gasket. It's got O-rings. So we're basically 4 bolts away from removing this cylinder. 1, 2, and then on the other side, the same. I'm gonna loosen them up and we'll bring you right back. Some people have favorite motorcycle brands. I wouldn't say that I really have a favorite, any one more than others. Just, you know, sometimes I happen to be riding one or the other. But I do like working on KTMs because they kind of make it easy for the people working on it, at least as far as the tools required. If you look, every small bolt, like in the case, things attaching the body panels, they're all these little 8mm, and they also have like a Torx head insert inside of them, so you could use either one of those. And then most of the big stuff is 13mm, like the head bolts and the cylinder stud nuts here. These are 13mm, so I've really only used an 8 and a 13 to take this engine apart, besides the occasional other things like these small Torx that were on these plates here, and then these larger Torx ones. But for the most part, pretty easy, pretty simple. They have it down to a science for the mechanics, which is nice, and they're good bikes to ride as well. All right, so this cylinder should be ready to come off. See if I can get it out of here without smashing my fingers. And it looks like we might have to put the piston all the way down, or what do we have to do here? We're not quite clearing something. There we go. And yeah, the piston has to go down. Tight squeeze. There we go. Made in Austria. Good day, mate. All right, here's the power valve, and of course, you want to make sure this thing is operating smoothly. Let me show you what that looks like inside of here. Hopefully we'll be able to see it now. See how that opens and closes this thing here? So I think, let's see, we were all the way up, I think, starting, so it's kind of like wide open, and then as the engine goes, it gets tighter. However that works. You can see it in here too, maybe. Pretty neat. So now we want to inspect everything closely, check our bore in here, make sure there's no scuffs, let's check that the plating is good. If you have yourself some bore gauges, you're going to want to check in here a couple of places to make sure that you're round. Clean everything up really well. I've removed the piston. I didn't show that, I guess, but just have to pop one of these clips out, push the pin out. On 2 strokes, I don't know many 4 strokes that have such a thing, but they have these needle bearings in the small end of the rod, which is nice. So you always change those out as well. So I'm gonna get all my new parts set up. Get a brand new piston in here, all the new gaskets, and I'm gonna set my ring end gap. Maybe I'll show you what that looks like. Let me get set up and I'll show you. Hopefully you can hear me over all the mulching noises out here, but we'll show you how to set ring end gap. So here's one of the piston rings. what you want to do is get that into the bore here. Use your piston to place it in evenly, partway in there. And then using a feeler gauge, hopefully you can see there's a gap there between it, and you want to measure that gap. And then there should be a limit in the manual. So let's see where we're at on this one here. This one says 15 to 23, or 0.15 to 0.23 millimeters. So we're in there. So we'll check the other one, and then I'll assemble the piston rings. Let me see how well you can see this. It's probably going to be very difficult to see. See that? It's not there you go. There's an N on that one, and on this one there is an R. Or maybe it's an N as well. Which one is there? Are they both N? Yeah, they're both N. Anyway, the N's should be up. Ends should be facing up. Mark up. We're getting close to assembly here, and I'm RTFM here right now reading my freaking manual. And on these KTM 300s you have what's called an X distance, and that's the piston to the top of the cylinder. It should be between 0 and 0.10, and I'm guessing that's 0.10 above. I'm gonna have to read a little bit more, but maybe it's below. Anyway, right here it says the X distance is adjusted by inserting cylinder base gaskets of various thicknesses, which is a giant pain in the ass. And I have a whole bunch of base gaskets here. What I've done to get started on this is I have taken my calipers and I measured the original gasket that came off here. We're going to say all things being the same, you know, stock piston going back in here, nothing else has changed. I have a base gasket that is approximately the same as that one, so I'm going to install this base gasket to get us started, and we'll install this thing and then we'll check that X distance. All right, hopefully we'll be able to see this here. Got my piston. There's the arrow. Arrow is almost always pointing towards the exhaust. Put some assembly lube on here, assembly lube on our new roller bearing. And then we want to push the pin in. I already have a snap ring in on the other side. So now I just need to install this snap ring on this side. And the other one went pretty good, and then that one I just dropped it and it was right down here. Of course, what a pain in the ass. Take two, and smarter, always put a rag in there, because if you drop this thing in the bottom of the engine, then you'll be fishing, and probably not the kind of fishing that you want to do. Not quite in there. Close though. I put some assembly lube down in the bearings in here, put a little bit on the skirts of the piston and on the rings, and a little bit in here. And now we're going to try our best to squeeze this cylinder in here and on here, which can be a fun time sometimes. You gotta try to get these rings pressed in enough to go over the bottom of the cylinder here. Let me slide to the other side here. There we go. Past the first one. And all we have to do is make sure the second one is lined up. On these two strokes, they only really go in one way. There's a little little tab built into the piston ring, land, what they call it, and the piston rings can only go in one direction, and there you go. You got it. Now we got to sneak it by this front piece, which I might have to take off to get it in here. I think we got lucky taking it off, but I'm not going to get lucky getting it on. This little orange piece is kind of like a retainer for the exhaust pipe. It's kind of causing me to hang up. Okay, hopefully now you can see what that exhaust retainer or whatever it is off of there. I'm close to lined up here. Close, there you go, popped right on. And now we're going to want to hold this cylinder down and take you out of the stand. Hold this cylinder down and cycle this piston up and see if we can figure out this X dimension right here that we were talking about. So first we got to put these nuts all on here and kind of tighten it down. It's been a real pain in the ass to try to get this thing checked. So putting the straight edge across here, it's not a problem. Checking the clearance, not a problem. But getting this thing exactly at the top is where the problem comes. If you push the Kickstarter down, I'll see if you can see how it does this here. So you slowly go up, and then it just cycles right past top dead center. So you try it again. It's right there, and you just gently push. And it just, there's the weight of the crankshaft wants to cause it to roll over. So what I did is I took the water pump cover off here, and then as I get close, I'm just turning the water pump here just to get that last little, see, like even with this, it just rolls right past it. So you have to just turn it. You can kind of see, look, it's still going up, and then it has just a moment at the top. But anyway, what I've had to do is turn this, and then, I don't know how you can see this here, get my hip on it, hold my hip on it, and then put the straight edge across here and measure it. But we're right within limits. What a pain in the ass. So now I'm going to tighten these all down, torque them, and I'll show you the next steps. All that being done, we're going to, we already got these all torqued down, 25 foot-pounds. We're going to install some new cylinder head O-rings here. Come in the gasket kit, so, you know, let's replace them. I've heard some diesels are set up like this too, with the O-rings and the cylinder heads. Kind of a slight pain in the ass here. They just seem like they're like a millimeter too small in diameter, but we'll get them in there. And we're going to install the stock cylinder head. This is the one that came off. This is like a high compression, and the gentleman who has this bike would prefer to use this one. That way he doesn't have to run race gas. Now we can install the cylinder head bolts. Each of these bolts have a copper crush washer on them, so we are going to replace those with new ones. Now we'll torque these down to 20 foot-pounds each in a crisscross pattern. I've already snugged them down. So crisscross pattern, you're gonna just kind of go in a star across and get all of them, and go around and double check all of them. Everything's going together nice and easy here. One note here, make sure you put this gasket on before you put this arm onto the power valve, because if you attach this and then put the little clip on it, obviously this can't go behind it. This goes behind this. Kind of got to push it down in here a little bit. There's this rubber piece. So you kind of got to work it a little bit. Like I go from the side, kind of slide it in. There you go. See how it's lined up? Now you install this power valve piece here. And then this is the little tiny little clip. Let me zoom in here. Maybe you can see how this works. So this goes on kind of down low. Oh, here. I guess I had that incorrect. You have to slide it up. There's a little hole on this left-hand side. And you have to slide it up that and then pop it over kind of in a clockwise fashion. There you go. Up and in, and then around. Boom. Now we'll put the cover on. We're definitely getting there. So I've installed the cover here, of course, the crossover pipe, this cylinder head cooling pipe. Got a brand new NGK iridium spark plug on here. Tighten that down. Should be able to feel some compression now. Holy smokes, we got some compression, that's for sure. Okay, we're almost there. We're going to, I'm going to change out this water pump impeller. He gave me a high performance one he wants on there. And then top off the coolant system, install the exhaust, hook these little cylinder stays back up, and we're almost there. Exhaust pipe's on. I've added some coolant. We'll let that settle in there a little bit. Spilled some all over, so I put some water on it. We'll let that settle in there. I'll top it off. We'll put the cap on, and then tank and seat. And now we'll see if this thing fires up. I don't have any reasonable doubt that it should. Everything went together fairly nicely. I have no idea if the electric start even works on this bike. On mine, the electric start is kind of picky. So let's take a look. I got no problems with that. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but she started right up. So brand new piston in there. We're going to have to go through some heat cycles, do the little break-in on it. I just wanted to make sure that it ran and nothing sounded crazy. But two-stroke top end rebuild, pretty easy. Let me stop the video and I'll give you a time estimate here. All right, so I was working on it for about 3.5 hours. Of course, taking video adds to the time. I stopped, a friend of mine stopped by to pick up the weed eater that I was working on for her. And then I also stopped for a little cold beverage. So pretty easy, taking your time. Even a first timer, you know, set aside a Saturday, you can knock this out. It's not extremely difficult. You don't need a lot of fancy tools to do something like this. So don't be afraid, give it a shot. If you're digging what I'm putting out, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. If you're not already a subscriber, please consider doing so. Thank you very much for watching. Get out there and find your adventure. Adios.